Today we're going to review the new Hyundai Venue, the cheapest new SUV you can buy. Is this compact car killer any good? Let's find out. But first, a compact Hyundai montage. Hyundai's introduction to the US market began way back in 1985 with the introduction of the Excel. Things have changed a lot since that era, but the desire for inexpensive transportation has not. So let's take an in-depth look at Hyundai's newest compact vehicle, the Venue. It's certainly inexpensive, but is it any good? Let's take it on a little road trip to find out. Remember the song "Video Killed the Radio Star"? It was the first song ever played on MTV and ushered in the new era of video. How about we change the lyrics to suit today's video? Crossovers killed the subcompact car. Okay, so it doesn't exactly have the same flow, but you get the idea. Subcompact sedans and hatchbacks are a dying breed in the US. Customers aren't buying them, dealers aren't pushing them. The Ford Fiesta? Dead. The Honda Fit? Dead. That Toyota Yaris that I just reviewed? Dead. Everyone wants a crossover or an SUV, even on the low end of the market. So instead of the Accent, Hyundai wants you to spend a little bit more and buy this Venue, the smallest crossover in their lineup. The base model starts at just over 17 grand. It's a very inexpensive car. Not as cheap as the Accent, but close. So who is this car for? I'd say the Venue is a cheap car for people who don't want to be seen in a cheap car. On the outside, this thing doesn't look nearly as small or as inexpensive as it really is. This Venue is clearly not a luxury car, but I think Hyundai did a great job at giving buyers a sense that they're getting a little bit more for their money. At least when it comes to exterior appearance, compared to other subcompact cars. When this car is by itself, it's really hard to tell how small this thing actually is. But when you park next to a normal-sized car, you quickly realize how tiny it is. It has a 99-inch wheelbase, actually shorter than a Toyota Yaris. And parked next to my wife's Prius, you can see that it's taller, but it's narrower and much shorter. The grille on this SEL trim is big, but actually looks good. This premium package gives you these LED daytime running lights and LED headlights, which look really nice. While the car is a bit short and stubby, I think Hyundai did a pretty good job considering the constraints of a small, low-cost car. All right, let's get in, see how it drives, talk about the interior features and cargo space, and see if we like it. One of the first things you'll notice about driving the Venue is that it's incredibly easy to drive. The visibility is great out the front, the sides, and the rear. The steering is nice and light, which I expect that the customers of this car are really going to enjoy. It's not great for hustling down a back road, but it's really nice for just having an easy driving experience around town. The driving position is excellent. There's lots of space in here, loads of headroom. You can get the seat really far back. Way further back than I need it, and I'm 6'3", so yeah, they give you the option to have a lot of space in here. The very tall and boxy shape of this very small car gives the impression that you're driving something a lot bigger than you actually are. The front seats are pretty comfortable. I don't really have too much of a problem with them. The back seats are a little bit less comfortable. I don't think I'd want to sit back there for a very long period of time. There's not a lot of legroom for tall people. Okay, when it comes to acceleration, it's acceptable. The engine is kind of loud, a little thrashy, a little buzzy. It definitely feels underpowered when you want to quickly get onto a freeway on-ramp, but around town, in most situations, it's gonna be adequate. The Venue can reach 60 miles an hour in about 8.8 seconds, which by today's standards is a little bit slow. It's not terrible, it's not that great either. Under the hood, we have a 121 horsepower, 1.6 liter four-cylinder. Now, compared to other cars in this class, the horsepower is definitely on the lower side. The Kia Soul, which is just about the same price as this car, makes quite a bit more. It makes 147. One of the things you're gonna love about this car is the gas mileage. It averages 31 miles per gallon. Now let's talk about the transmission. Now Now you hear some gear changes in there. Those aren't actual gears, those are simulated gear changes. This is a CVT, it does have a continuously variable transmission. And when you hear CVT, a lot of people think, ugh, it's probably awful. This is actually a really good CVT. I think most people are used to the traditional gear changes that you get with a normal automatic transmission, and this simulates it pretty well. It does give you the ability to shift it yourself, but I don't really ever see a need for that. This car is not very sporty. Just let the CVT do its thing. It's pretty good. Hyundai gives you 3 drive modes. You got the normal mode, you got a sport mode, and snow mode. Obviously, normal mode is for basic everyday driving around town. Sport mode is for, actually, I'm not really sure what sport mode's for because this car really isn't all that sporty. It does give you some sporting characteristics, I guess. The throttle response feels maybe a touch more responsive, but I don't know. I don't really see a reason to ever use sport mode. Now let's talk about the ride. It's pretty good. Over choppy pavement, you can definitely feel some of the bumps, but overall for a car that's this cheap, I think most people are going to be really happy with it. Now the materials used in the cabin of this car, that's where you really start to see where they cut the costs. There's no soft padding really anywhere in here. It's especially noticeable right here where you would want to rest your arm. It's not comfortable at all. So yeah, just leave your arms dangling while you drive this thing. There's really no soft place to put them. This center console lid is a little bit softer, but still not really very comfortable. And if you're tall like me, your knees will bang against these kind of hard plastics on the left and the right here. But you have to keep in mind the price point of this car. It's the cheapest SUV you can buy. I'd be perfectly happy with the interior of this car given how little you pay for it. So yeah, this is by no means a luxury car, but gone are the days when you'd buy an inexpensive car and there were no features. Hyundai really loads this vehicle up with features, even on the base trim. You've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and even if you're not using that, the built-in navigation is actually quite good. The infotainment system is great. I've said this many times. The Hyundai and Kia systems are definitely one of the best. It's also got a huge volume knob, which is really nice. You get 2 USB charge points right up here in the front, but none in the rear. The SEL gives you the automatic climate control, which works great. The controls feel high quality. It's easy to use. The center display actually kind of seems like it's supposed to be a knob, but it's not. But that's the only kind of weird thing about it. There's not a lot of storage space in here. This center console is tiny. There's a little cubby right here above the glove box that you can put some stuff in. The door pockets are very small, and there's a little tiny space up here for your phone. So if you have a lot of stuff you like to carry around with you, you might have a hard time finding spaces to put it. The cup holders in the center are kind of smallish, but they're fine. The cup holders in the door are really small. You could probably only fit like a plastic water bottle in there. This trim comes with heated seats, which is really great for an inexpensive car like this. You got a sunroof. For being the cheapest crossover you can buy today, there's a lot to like here. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I'm a fan of small cars. I'm a fan of cheap cars. I'm a fan of econoboxes. I like inexpensive transportation. I like good values, and this is a great value. For somebody coming out of an older car, this is gonna feel like a big step up. I actually think the Venue is a great vehicle for somebody that maybe just got their first well-paying job and they don't want to show up in their old hoopty anymore. I think the Venue does a really good job of appearing like a much more expensive vehicle than it actually is, at least on the exterior. This might be a good car to consider if you were in the market for a used car, but you actually want a warranty. The Hyundai warranty is really quite good. But I definitely say this car is probably best for somebody that's single or maybe just a couple. If you have kids, it's probably not the car for you. You can fit a car seat in the back pretty easily with those latch anchors. It is actually quite spacious with the seats folded down. The boxy nature of this car really helps in that regard. But if you have a baby seat in the back, no room for a stroller, no room for kids stuff. It's pretty tiny. So let's take this car on a little road trip. I'm gonna go visit my parents up in Tehachapi, California, which is about an hour and a half from here. Now let's talk about power here again for a second. 121 horsepower seems like an awfully small amount, but on the freeway, you can easily keep up with traffic. If you need to pass somebody, you can pass somebody. The only time where it really becomes an issue is if you're trying to get around somebody really quickly. All right, let's try to pass somebody. It can be done. You can pass somebody in this car. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be easy or fun, but you can do it. Now you might be wondering, how quiet is this vehicle? There's a fair amount of tire noise, there's a fair amount of wind noise, and you can definitely hear the roaring of the engine going up and down these hills. But you just have to go back to the price point of this car. For what you're paying, the sound levels and the level of refinement that you get with this vehicle, it's pretty good at that price point. Okay, let's talk about some of the safety and driver assistance features of this car. It's got lane keep assist, which if you know Hyundais and Kias, they actually have really good lane keep assist systems. Also, keep in mind, this lane keep system is standard on even the base model. The SEL also gives you blind spot alerts, which is really nice. The Venue comes with cruise control, but no adaptive cruise control, which is kind of a bummer on this long trip. All right, so we're getting closer to our destination. You know what? I think it's time for a Hyundai Venue montage. So, what's the verdict? There's mostly good news, but there's a bit of bad news too. Let's start with the bad news first. Because of the lack of power, you may need to adjust your driving habits, especially on the freeway. While the interior looks good and has an acceptable quality level for this price point, there are a few annoyances like no comfortable place to rest your arms. And now for the good news. As one of the cheapest crossovers available today, with a nice list of standard features, the Venue is a good value. There's a decent amount of safety tech standard even on the base model. And the gas mileage is pretty good. So how does the Venue compare to the competition? For just $140 more than a base model Venue, you could get a Kia Soul LX. The Soul has significantly more cargo space, more interior space, and more horsepower. But the Soul does get slightly worse gas mileage, and the styling may or may not be your thing. What if you wanted a nicer interior? You probably want to step up to a Mazda CX-3 or a CX-30, but they're both quite a bit more expensive. You might also consider the Nissan Kicks. It gets slightly better gas mileage and has a lot more cargo space, but the styling of the Kicks might not be your thing. What about the Ford EcoSport, or EcoSport, or however the heck they pronounce it? Gas mileage is quite a bit worse than the Ford. It's also more expensive, but it does have a tiny bit more cargo space. How does it compare to a subcompact sedan or hatchback? A Hyundai Accent starts at just over $15,000, quite a bit cheaper than this. It's on par with the Venue in terms of features, power, and even interior space. It even gets slightly better highway fuel economy. The only real place it falls behind is in cargo capacity. And I suppose style, since apparently nobody wants sedans or hatchbacks anymore. The Hyundai Venue is a great, low-cost, entry-level crossover with adorable looks and loads of interior space. It's a cheap car that makes you feel like you didn't cheap out, even though you didn't spend all that much money. Would you buy a Venue? If not, what would you buy instead? Thanks for watching. See you soon.